Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of Khanversations. This is not a happy conversation. I must confess that I'm distraught, I'm very upset, I'm saddened, and I'm also angry at what is happening between the Arabs and the Jews, the Palestinians and Israelis in the Holy Land. We are witnessing another war on Gaza. 53 Palestinians have died, 14 of them children, 6 Israelis have died. Many of the people who have died have nothing to do with the current edition of this conflict.
Israel carried out hundreds of airstrikes into Gaza on Wednesday as Hamas and other Palestinian militants fired multiple rockets over the border at Tel Aviv and Beersheba. Dozens have...
This conflict has started with the attempt by the Israeli state and the Israeli government to evict Palestinians from a neighborhood called Sheikh Jarrah on the east side of Jerusalem. The Israeli government says this is a private dispute between people. It has nothing to do with government policy, whereas the Palestinians see this as a continuation of an unceasing attempt to eliminate the Palestinian presence from Jerusalem. They call it the Judaization of Jerusalem, the removal and the erasure of Palestinian identity and presence from Jerusalem. The Israeli population and Israeli spokespersons argue that based on Ottoman-era laws, there are some Jewish agencies and settlers who have a right to that particular neighborhood. But if you were to apply the Ottoman-era laws, then the 750,000 Palestinians who were expelled from Israel in 1948 should also have the same rights to come back to Israel and get back their own homes and properties, which obviously is not happening. So this frustration for the Palestinians has led to protests, which then went up into the holy mosque of Al-Aqsa, which is the third holiest site for Muslims. Protests continued for weeks, and then Hamas asserting that the violence of the Israeli police against the Palestinians, which has injured nearly 300, has prompted them to shoot rockets. They have now shot over 1,000 rockets on Israel, killing 6 Israelis, and Israel has responded brutally, killing over 53 Palestinians and bombarding them with over 100 airstrikes. So the war continues, the horror continues. And I have with me 2 very distinguished leaders of the Delaware faith community, Reverend Dr. Greg Jones, who is one of the most prominent Christian leaders in Delaware, and Rabbi Douglas Krantz, who is not only one of the founders of J-Street, a pro-Israel lobby that believes in the two-state solution, and who has, fortunately for us, retired in Delaware. So, gentlemen, you are seeing what I'm seeing. What is your reaction? I will go to Greg Jones first.
Yeah, I think I wonder how Americans are understanding what's happening. Yesterday, as I left the church yesterday evening, I was getting ready to go home. I started my car, the radio came on, and the first report I heard said that Hamas has launched missiles at Israelis. The Israelis have responded by shooting missiles at Gaza. And the impression of the entire program was that Hamas started this. Those bad terrorists have started something again, and so they deserve to get punished. I was really surprised by that. There was nothing mentioned at all about what you've mentioned, the Jewish extremists marching through Palestinian populated areas of Jerusalem. 2 weeks ago, they were marching through saying death to Arabs. And then the settlers in Sheikh Jarrah trying to evict the Palestinian families from their homes. And then all of the way the Israeli police stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and thousands were worshiping, were coming to the end of Ramadan, and they're firing tear gas and grenades at them. And none of that is mentioned as the context whatsoever, as if it's just these terrible Hamas people shooting missiles off. I read where Jewish Senator Bernie Sanders recognize that the settler movement is the huge part of the problem here. He was calling on the Biden administration. He said the United States must call for an immediate ceasefire and an end to the provocative and illegal settlement activity. It's these settlements that are causing a lot of the harm. And I'll toss it to Douglas at this point.
Nabils' daughter Muna was filmed in an exchange with the man who currently lives there.
Jacob, you know this is not your house.
Yes, but if I go, you don't go back. So what's the problem? Why are you yelling at me? I didn't do this. I didn't do this.
But
It's easy to yell at me, but I didn't do this.
You are stealing my house.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it.
No one is allowed to steal it, ya ammi.
Thank you so much. So these are sad days. I was on the phone this morning with Gaza, spoke to family that I've been close with for years. I was with them once in their home, on their roof actually, when the Israelis responded with gunships to an event that had taken place. And I know how terribly frightening it is. And what I heard this morning from my friend I've known now for, 30 years, she was telling me that they've never had a bombardment like this. That it's relentless, it's loud, it's terribly frightening, and it doesn't stop.
Of the Israeli Air Force on top of them, there is nowhere safe to run. Locals filmed the moment a 13-story building collapsed. It's not clear how many people were in it at the time. It is a residential block. The Israelis had earlier said that they were targeting militants in their homes. The number confirmed to have died through the day and the night before continues to rise. Children too. Here, a mother and her son are buried. They're from a...
And I see the other side of the coin, which is I can imagine what it's like in Israel to be under all of those rockets. Those are scary times on both sides. I think the tragedy here has been that in some ways, one of the effects of the Holocaust was to militarize Jewish consciousness, because so many of the Jews were unarmed and had no way to defend themselves. And the rise of Jewish militarized consciousness led to the militarization of Palestinian consciousness. And we have that on both sides. And we have failed to break that cycle. And it is this is not what Zionism was supposed to be about, and this is not how the Palestinians are supposed to be living either. And when you talk about true tragedies feeding upon each other, and all of us failing to figure out a way, all of us, I mean in the Jewish peace camp, I don't mean you two, I mean all of us in the Jewish peace camp, failing to be successful in creating an alternative to continued militarization. And it's the most significant failure of my career and things that I've worked on.
Rabbi, we talk about it as if there is some kind of equivalence in suffering on both sides. The Israelis have a protective dome that protects them from all of these rockets, which is 90% accurate. We have given them technology and billions of dollars to support this. Israel is the first country to use F-35s against Palestinians now, bombing them. We give them billions of dollars of aid and weapons. They have, Israelis are complaining that they are stuck in bunkers, protected from missiles. Palestinians are exposed. There's nothing there to protect them. Not only that, they have been in this horrible blockage for literally like years and years. They're impoverished. And it is amazing to me that we are unable to see the tremendous pain of the Palestinians under a brutal military occupation.
First of all, I have not equated the suffering. Okay, I have not. I mean, there's a reason that I called Gaza today. I mean, I'm not insensitive to that. And I've been friendly with this family for 30 years, and an extended family, and been there. And I've been there when the Israeli gunships have come ashore. So I'm not equating them. What I'm talking about is the militarization of consciousness, which has not brought peace to either side. I also think it's important to talk about failures. I mean, we had our chance to make significant gains when the Rabin government came to power, and we weren't able to do it for a whole host of reasons. That's why I use the word tragic. And I'm not in any way giving up, but I think that we still have to work for a political solution. There is no military solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and there never has been, because the dimensions and the scale of the land areas are too small. And so it's terrible.
Greg, one of the problems is, I think, our own role, the role of the United States in this conflict. We exclude the world from getting involved. We use our diplomatic power to keep others out. And then this war is being fought with American weapons. We are funding it. And we are protecting essentially an Israeli occupation that has continued for decades. Israel continues to break international law on a daily basis when it expands settlements, basically eliminating the possibility of a two-state solution. But our president sends signals to Israel saying, you can do whatever you like. We will never abandon you because our support for you is ironclad, which means under no circumstances will we abandon you. So how long will this American collusion and American-sponsored oppression continue? Because this is not just radicalizing Jews and Palestinians and Muslims and Israelis, but it's also radicalizing people all over the world. And even here, people are getting very emotional about this issue. So what can people like you and me and Rabbi Krantz do? I feel helpless. I feel helpless. I feel frustrated. What can we do to make things better?
First off, I share your feeling of being pretty helpless in this situation. However, we do need to encourage and or pressure our political leaders to do things. For instance, Betty McCollum's going to be bringing a bill very soon.
Yeah.
And she's going to simply say, you can't use our money for military weapons to kill children, to abuse people, some simple things. And unfortunately, there are too many people, too many political leaders who think that if you don't give Israel a complete blank check, let them do whatever they want to with the military, then you're somehow anti-Semitic or you're not supporting Israel. Surely we want to support an Israel that is both just and democratic and seeking peace. That's the kind of Israel we want, just like we'd want to do in our own nation. You know, we have the freedom to protest and to make changes in our own country. It's ludicrous to me that we can't do the same thing about a country that we're giving billions of dollars to.
Rabbi, you have taken many bold positions on this conflict in the past, and you continue to do so. And I have learned so much from you on how to even understand this conflict. I think that the fact that the U.S. provides billions of dollars with no conditions attached, is that a leverage that the U.S. has to resolve this conflict that we are not utilized? How do you think should we restructure U.S. support for Israel going forward, looking at the current events that are going on?
But when you were speaking before, I was prepared to answer the question you just asked, because I wanted to make a comment on something that I think is really important, that has nothing to do with the American Jewish community at all. And I remember as quite a young man, now that I'm old and in my 70s, I remember people warning us about the military-industrial complex. That's what's feeding the rise of the weaponry. It's not the American Jewish community, and it's not even United States Congress. I mean, we have a huge military-industrial complex, and we have to do something with those planes, and they have to be tested in war. And so the only group that's profiting from the militarization of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the military-industrial complex. And it's we've been warned about it, and it's been dangerous. And I I think it's the worst thing that happened to Israel, to Zionism, and to the Palestinians, because now the Palestinians have rockets and they're not hesitating to use them. And so we have now one escalation, one military escalation leading to another, leading to another, leading to another, and no political solution. That's one thing I want to say. The second thing I want to suggest is that I have always advocated talking to your enemies and the people you disagree with. And I, early on in my career, 30 years or so ago, was in Gaza and met with Yasser Arafat several times, personally, one-on-one. And he betrayed the peace camp. And he started an intifada. And I had to stand up in front of my congregation and apologize for being wrong, so that there have been failures of leadership on both sides as well. And I think that we having said that, I think that we need to persevere. I think that we need to keep trying to work on this problem. I mean, I started working for a two-state solution in December of 1973. It's been what I call a study in progress and an extended failure. But I think we have to keep working. And I think we have to keep our relationships up with Palestinians. When I go to Israel, I visit all parts of Israel, Palestine, Gaza, when I can get in these days. And so I think that the problem has been harder and we have not been successful. But we haven't been successful with racism in our country either. I don't have to tell you that, Professor.
When Netanyahu refuses to commit to a two-state solution, when Israeli leaders dance around the idea of two-state solutions, I don't see American leaders and American politicians and presidents pushing Israel on this issue. Okay, you say you believe in two-state solution. That is our policy. So how does this expansion of settlements facilitate that? Why can't we say stop the settlement building and eliminating the possibility, the physical possibility of a Palestinian state?
First of all, if I knew the answer to that question, I wouldn't be on this call. I would be there now.
That is true.
Okay. All right. And I would take you both with me. But
I wish we could do that.
Yeah, I wish we could too. I'm saying that out of frustration. I'm saying that because we've continually lost a number of battles in my lifetime. Civil rights, which has made tremendous progress, is far from over in this country. All right. The things that I fought for. I've been opposed to every single war that's been fought in my lifetime, but they keep getting fought. And so all I can do is work for peace and not give up and be more and more diligent in my efforts. And I'm hopeful that now, I don't think it's going to happen in the first 3 months of a Biden administration, but there's already a change in tone. And let's see what happens in a year or two. Let's see if we can't do something. We here in Delaware have some influence on that. And I think that we should try to leverage that. And I think we will. And I think we can do it together. And I think this video is exactly about that.
Why aren't we able to get our leaders here to stand up more firmly and hold? We cut aid and relations with countries which violate human rights elsewhere. We are imposing sanctions on China for the way it's treating Uyghurs. Why can't we do the same? Why can't we treat Israel as a normal country and hold it accountable for its own human rights violations, which are so egregious and so blatantly on display?
I have no idea how to answer that question. I have the same question.
I think I have a partial answer, and I think you have it with the Uyghurs and what's going on in China. I met members of that community in Doha a number of years ago, and I was very touched by the analogy between that community and the Jews that suffered in Germany. And I'm amazed by the silence that we have in our own country and how little I've done for the Uyghurs and how little we've all done together. I don't have a pulpit because I'm retired, so I haven't spoken about it. But I haven't done much about that either. And that's a bill that's going to come due, a moral bill that's going to come due. And I think we have to take responsibility for that more than we have. And I think that that's true for the Palestinians as well. We have to take responsibility for their suffering and our role in that and our failure as well.
Well, I want to thank both of you to come out and speak so boldly on this issue. I am aware that you get a lot of backlash from your own community and your own friends, and probably Rabbi Douglas Krantz's phone is going to start ringing the moment I publish this interview. But I'm extremely grateful for both of you in the last few years. We may not have made a policy change, but we definitely have changed the conversation about this issue, at least in the state of Delaware. And we are having through J-Street, which is quite active here, we have been able to reach out to Delaware's federal delegation, Lisa, the congresswoman who represents Delaware, Chris, as well as Senator Carper. So I'm grateful to both of you for that. I want to leave my audience with a moment of Zen, stealing this idea from one of the comedy shows, and I want you to see how American officials refuse and struggle to not condemn even the killing of children. So thank you very much to both of you. And until the next time, I hope I have something positive and uplifting to discuss. Let's all pray. Tomorrow is Eid. Let's all pray that there is first and foremost peace and no more lives are lost. And then we will talk about land. Life is more important than land. Thank you very much, people.
Thank you.
Palestinian, do they have a right to self-defense? Do Palestinians have a right to self-defense?
In broadly speaking, Saeed, we believe in the concept of self-defense. We believe it applies to any state. I don't think that I certainly wouldn't want my words to be construed as.
I understand. I want to ask you, I don't want to harp on this either, but the Israelis killed 13 people just now, including maybe 5 or 6 children. Do you condemn that? Do you condemn the killing of children?
Saeed,
I'm asking, do you condemn the killing of Palestinian children?
Obviously, and these reports are just emerging, and I understand, I was just speaking to the team, I understand we don't have independent confirmation of facts on the ground yet, so I'm very hesitant to get into reports that are just emerging. Obviously, the deaths of civilians, be they Israeli or Palestinians, are something we would take very seriously.
Your answer, you're going to know as soon as I read what your answer was, that there's a big problem with it. You said, well, not a problem, it just doesn't answer the question. We believe that it, meaning the right to self-defense, applies to any state. Well, you see the problem, right? Yes? Do you regard Palestine as a state?
I wasn't referring.
Do you think that, you don't in the context of the ICC and the UN? Are you saying that you do not, if it applies to any state, are you saying that Palestinians don't have a right to self-defense? I was making a broader point, not attached to Israel or Palestinians in that case. So they do have a right to self-defense.
Matt, I'm not in a position to debate the legalities from up here. What our message